marketed as a scientifically based document. Now, the American Psychiatric Association, which publishes the DSM, do a lot of work to create an aura of scientific precision around the DSM, but it's not scientifically based.
Depuis la première édition du manuel diagnostique et statistique, DSM, le nombre de troubles mentaux votés et ajoutés à ce manuel psychiatrique est monté à 374. Et chaque fois que les psychiatres inventent un nouveau trouble mental, ils trouvent un autre moyen de tromper le public.
If you have 27 ways to bill in the DSM, that's 27 ways to bill. If you have 300, that's 300 ways to bill. So you can pretty much find anyone walking on the street that could fit into a DSM somehow.
When you build insurance companies, you can't say the word. You've got to say a number. And they have numbers for the most ridiculous things, you know, like arguing with your mother or peeing in the bed.
Adolescent rebellion disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. Arithmetic learning disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. General anxiety disorder is a recent diagnosis.
For each one, there is a 5-digit code with a decimal point. Now, the implication of that is if I have illness 403.16, that's different in some important and scientifically proven way from someone who has 403.17. And nothing could be further from the truth.
Aussi incroyable que cela soit, si les psychiatres présentent le DSM comme un ouvrage scientifique, ils admettent ouvertement qu'il n'a aucun fondement scientifique.
We have no diagnostic reliable markers for almost any illness there is in the DSM.
What we're testing for in psychiatry, it's hard to say because there's nothing specifically.
But as far as a test that's clinically useful, basically we're not there yet.
We don't have any laboratory tests that we can use to determine whether somebody does or doesn't have a mental illness.
There are no good biological tests for detecting mental illness.
There is no test, there's no biopsy you can do.
There is no chemical test right now.
There are no specific tests to confirm the diagnosis or show the improvement, like any blood tests or any x-rays or anything like that.
Oh, in my practice I don't do any tests. I just speak with people and listen to them, and then I make a decision in what kind of illness.
Ces diagnostics sont complètement différents d'un psychiatre à l'autre. Une personne équipée d'une caméra cachée a consulté différents psychiatres en se plaignant des mêmes symptômes.
I'm extremely unorganized, and I didn't used to be. It's caused problems in the family. It's caused problems getting, I'm self-employed.
You've got ADD, ADHD, you're depressed, and your depression is bipolar depressed.
If you have a brain chemistry disorder, it's probably genetic.
You have a lot of the symptoms of depression.
So it seems like it is a mixed picture. What that means is like we got some depressive symptoms and some, high symptoms.
If you're bipolar, I'll need to give you a mood stabilizer. We don't know. I kind of doubt it. It's
considered low-grade bipolar.
You are more of the ADD than ADHD.
And as far as medications for depression, because I would recommend that you start a medication, which are Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, Celexa.
Usually propylene XR is pretty good.
They'll give you some Lexapro in the morning and some Trazodone at night.
Lamictal is a better medication for that. It works on your depression also.
But the treatment for any bipolar cycling is the same. The lithium.
Remeron is another one.
Trazodone.
Tegretol.
Depakote.
Wellbutrin.
Lexapro.
Lamictal.
Equatroid.
Depakote.
Lithium.
Ambien.
You may need an antidepressant also with your Lamictal.
We don't know if I give you a medication if it is going to work or not.
To a certain degree, it's trial and error.
You never know if it's the right drug.
How many people have I cured? Well, there are no real cures right now in psychiatry.
I have cured none of my patients.
We're always challenged by our lack of knowledge.
In fact, we don't know what the causes of mental illness are.
Most mental illnesses, we do not know the cause.
Of course, it would be nice to know exact reasons of disorders, but maybe in the future.
I'm the Director of Research at the American Psychiatric Association. We don't know the etiology of really any of the mental disorders at the present time.
DSM-5 is coming out,
It's grown to 10 times its original size, and it labels everybody. I could find 5 diagnoses that would fit you or anybody else.
Comparez cela aux méthodes de recherche de la pathologie, une vraie science qui découvre de vraies maladies en utilisant un grand nombre de tests précis pour les diagnostiquer.
We do millions of laboratory tests as well as the structural examination and the microscopic examination. It's a whole series of applied scientific procedures. In the case of psychiatry, there isn't any laboratory tool that can precisely identify a psychiatric disease and allow it to be classified.
It's not as if there's some study of tissue or some study of the body or some study of matter. These are all categories which are made up. They're simply made up. They don't exist in nature. They're decided upon by psychiatrists and voted on.
Les psychiatres ne sont pas les seuls à tirer profit du DSM. Chaque diagnostic psychiatrique s'accompagne d'un psychotrope.
The pharmaceutical corporations now contribute enormous sums of money for the education of psychiatric residents and for the support of research by their professors, so that psychiatry today has become in America, has become very largely learning which drug to use with which disease or disorder.
We need to make sure that we understand the very close interactions among the American Psychiatric Association with its DSM, the pharmaceutical companies, who love the fact that every time there's a new edition of the DSM, there are dozens more categories in there, and so more conditions for the drug companies to say, oh, we've got a pill for that.
En 2006, une étude a rapporté que 56% des psychiatres qui décidaient des troubles à ajouter à la prochaine édition du DSM avaient des intérêts financiers en commun avec au moins une société pharmaceutique. Aujourd'hui, nous en voyons les conséquences. Une avalanche de psychotropes destinés à des troubles inventés et cautionnés par un diagnostic arbitraire figurant dans le DSM.
The fact that it is couched in the language of science without necessarily having any of the scientific data or underpinnings to justify it is as threatening as anything we've seen today.
Le dernier stratagème très onéreux de la psychiatrie pour tromper le public en imitant l'autorité médicale légitime, les scanographies du cerveau.
We can scan all the brains we want to. The fact that we see changes in different people's brains, changes in functioning, doesn't mean that we've discovered anything that has its origin in the brain. It just means that we're seeing changes, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the brain.
Les psychiatres et les psychologues se servent du DSM pour coller une étiquette de malade mental sur 450 millions de personnes dans le monde, ce qui équivaut à la totalité de la population de la France, de l'Italie, de l'Allemagne, du Canada, de l'Australie, du Royaume-Uni et de la Russie combinée. Cependant, la vente de psychotropes sur ordonnance a atteint au niveau mondial le chiffre de 27 milliards de dollars par an en subventions gouvernementales et rapporte à la psychiatrie 440 milliards de dollars par an. La plupart de cet argent provient de diagnostics et de psychotropes donnés à ceux qui nous font le plus confiance et qui sont les plus vulnérables.
We have swallowed all manner of poisonous certainties fed us by our parents and school teachers. If the race is to be freed from its crippling burden of good and evil, it must be psychiatrists who take the original responsibility.
La déclaration de Brock-Chisholm caractérisait l'assaut psychiatrique dirigé vers notre système scolaire.
They actually said that the purpose was social control. Not to pass on knowledge, not to give him something so that he can go into the world of work.
En 1950, des psychiatres et psychologues du monde entier se sont réunis à la Maison-Blanche pour proposer une réorientation totale du système scolaire public.
The White House Conference on Mental Health in the 1950s was a landmark that served to bolster the idea that schools would serve their communities better as mental health clinics than they would as institutions of learning.
In the early 60s, the world of psychiatry started to really go places in this country, little by little.